Okay, so we are recording. My agenda for tonight is to get through the syllabus. And then after we get through the syllabus, just start introducing some of the concepts from lecture one. Let me pull up the syllabus and we'll start there. Can everybody see the syllabus or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So, as you know, this is Psych 352, which is the history of psychology. This particular class is online, but synchronous. By now, you know what that means. When we started during COVID, many of us, it was a new language. But just in case this is your first online course, I'm going to define what online synchronous means. Online synchronous, all it means is that we have live lectures. So we're going to be responsible for the same content as if we were on campus, but we're going to be doing it virtually with live lectures. That's online synchronous. Now, some of you know who I am already. I saw some of the names on the attendance, and some of you've already had me, so you know how I go about this. The syllabus will take me 40 minutes to an hour because there's less doing on this particular syllabus. But I try and take my time so you know what you're getting into. Hi, Adelpha. Good to see you again. I've been at the college now. I'm starting my 18th year. So I've been here for a minute. And I started when I was younger, whatever. I usually make a joke that either I'm getting old or I started young, and it's actually a combination of the two. But that being said, this is not my first rodeo in particular with teaching the history of psychology. I've taught it many times, and I've even taught it during COVID. So I have an online method of teaching it. Now, our particular classes will be Tuesday and Thursday from 4:40 to 6:20 p.m. But we will also have office hours. Now, some of you may be on campus, some of you may be taking all virtual classes. So what I tried to do with my office hours is give you one office hour on campus on Mondays from 12:10 to 1:10 p.m. And then I tried to give a virtual hour, the hour before class on Tuesdays. So if you can't make it to me on Monday in person, you could pop in during Zoom. If there's anything that is personal, that certainly I would recommend you do the Zoom one, because I can control a waiting room. If we're on campus, it's much harder to control people walking by, other people wanting to talk to me. I have less control over that. So if there's anything personal that you want to talk about, I strongly recommend doing my Zoom hours. Now, this is the Zoom link. This is my personal meeting link. It is the link that I will be using all semester long. It is also the link that I will be using for office hours, for virtual office hours on Tuesdays. So you won't have to wait for a link. You'll know that this is our link every single class period, and you're able to just log in. Now, in order to take this course, you would have had to take Psych 100, 201, and an additional 8 credits at the 200 level or higher. But many of you probably have taken a lot more. 1 second. Yeah, hold on. It looks like my son's trying to get in. Hello? I'm teaching. No, tell mommy I'm teaching. Forgive me. When family calls, family calls. That's the only downside with this modality is you don't always get undivided attention, and I do apologize for that. Now, the textbook we will be using is Schultz and Schultz, A History of Modern Psychology. There are different textbooks we could use, but this one is written in a very clear, simple fashion. And it's also written strategically to skip out some of the earlier time periods before the Renaissance so that you get the information you need as you're perhaps planning for grad school or taking the psychology GRE. So it's strategic. Now, our class, very straightforward. There's no paper in this class. All you have are tests and participation. That's it. So I have 4 exams. Your top 3 exams will account for 90% of your grade. So your top 3 are worth 30%. In terms of dropping a grade, I always drop the lowest test grade. My tests are multiple choice. They will be during the class period. They will be online tests. Obviously, I can't administer a physical test to you from afar, but disregard the Scantron bit because that's not relevant because it's a virtual class. I must have missed that. In terms of tests, let me see. Okay, that's it. The chat's not for me. In terms of tests, I usually mention that if anyone has a particular accommodation, please let me know, right? Because in order to be able to benefit from that accommodation, I need to be able to set it up so that you can. You don't need to tell me why you have an accommodation. All you need to do is tell me what your accommodation is, and I will make sure to link up with the Center for Student Accessibility to make sure you get what you're entitled to. Now, Rosa Maria, you have your hand up?
Yes, hi, Professor. I just have a question. The participation, how do you do it? Do you do it just by attendance or like actual
Good
participation in
question.
the class?
Good question.
Or is
I
it
do it
discussion
by
post?
attendance, and I take attendance twice, one at the beginning of the class and one at the end of the class. And this is the most objective way to score participation, believe it or not, because if you're not here, you can't participate. So if you're, I can quantify your level of participation based on your presence in the classroom. So if you're absent for that day, you'll get 0 participation points. If you're late or if you leave early, you'll get half participation points. And if you're here full time, you'll get full participation points. What I generally like to do is, I'll be lecturing, then I'll throw out a question. I might call on someone. So if you're here and I don't call on you, I don't treat that as you not participating. I treat that as I didn't invite you to participate at that moment, right? And I think that that's the fairest way to grade participation. Otherwise, am I going to keep a spreadsheet on how many times you raised your hand and whether your question was substantive or not? That's so subjective. So yes, participation is directly linked to attendance. That's a very good question. Did that answer? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right. So again, like I said, the accommodations, it is not me who decides what accommodations you get. It is the Center for Student Accessibility, and whatever you are registered for, they will let me know. And they will oftentimes facilitate you taking the test as well. So that's it. That's the test component. Now, in terms of attendance, because we don't have in-class connection, a physical connection, I can't look you in the eye, I can't walk throughout the classroom. Doing it this way, I need you in the classroom. I need you to be here every class period. I need you to be here from the beginning to the end of the class period. History, whether it be the history of psychology or something else, there's a lot of random facts, a lot of random definitions. And if you're not in the classroom, it's going to certainly hinder your performance. So that's why I put some weight to attendance. So now, are you allowed to miss any classes? The answer is there are two answers actually. No, if you don't want it to count against your participation. Every absence will count against your participation, regardless of if it's one or more than one, because that, again, that's how I'm gonna mathematically quantify your participation. However, what most people are asking is, does an absence put me in jeopardy of failing a class? So according to CUNY, without being withdrawn from a class, you're allowed to miss up to 15%. That is the amount you're allowed to miss without us giving you a WU. So people oftentimes confuse the WU policy with being allowed to miss class in general. Because I account for every single day, you have to be here even if it's less than 15%. Now, one of the interesting things about the course catalog, the CUNY catalog, is it has some language about when we should give a WU or how to apply the WU. And I lifted this straight from the catalog as it relates to academic policies. It says a student who is absent in excess of 15% of the class hours will be assigned a letter of a WU subject to the discretion of the professor. Now, most of you in the room, you're not interested in law, but there are two words that are relevant in this phrase. The first one is will be assigned. Now, in the law, there is a difference between will and shall. If you ever see shall in a contract, it means it must happen. It's a mandate. You can't, there's no deviation from the policy. If you see will, there's more flexibility. It is the standard, but it's not a mandate. So the first thing you're seeing is the letter or the word will implies there might be a little more flexibility in whether you have to give a WU or not. But just in case a person was confused, they created a clause at the end of the sentence, which is subject to the discretion of the professor. That clause also is reminding a student and reminding a professor that there is flexibility. In general, I don't assign WUs unless a person absolutely disappeared from the classroom. Most of the time, if a person misses a class, they're already being penalized on their participation points, right? So if you happen to miss more than 15% of the class, but it's spread out throughout the term, and it's not that you just disappeared, there's no reason for me to give you a WU personally. So I usually don't apply the WU policy unless a person just absolutely goes MIA without any communication. If there's communication or you're doing well in the class or it's spread out across, the term and mathematically it's more than 15%, you're okay. That's I'm spending time on that because I want you to know that the biggest consequence of attendance is the participation points. That 10% is already baked in. Now, another thing that's important as it relates to my attendance policy, I don't do excused absences. If you have to miss a class, you have to miss a class. Naturally, if there's something that is I don't know, a federal law, myself or any other professors cannot go against the law. So let's say you are absent because of religious observance. I would open up a calendar, make sure that that holiday exists. Most of the time, I already know because one area of research of mine is religious and spiritual mental health. So I know a lot of the holidays already. But hypothetically, I would just look it up in a calendar and then say, okay, that is an excused absence. If there is a wedding or a funeral, even though I say I don't do excuse absences, generally speaking, I excuse that because I don't think, with documentation, of course, I don't think I'm more important than a wedding or a funeral. If there is a hospitalization with documentation, I will excuse it. But outside of that, if you go to urgent care, if you go to a minute clinic at like CVS, I'm not going to excuse the absence. It's if you get a flat tire or if you're running late from work, generally speaking, you agreed to be here. You agreed to be here from 4:40 to 6:20 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I expect that commitment. Obviously, things happen, but that's generally speaking my policy. There is, I guess, one more example where I do excuse an absence if someone is on our sports team and the team is away for a game or a competition. I would just need a letter from the athletic director. But the everyday absences, if you get sick, don't worry about it. We're recording the lecture. You'll catch up. It'll be a minor ding on your participation points, but I don't want you to feel like everything is lost. So that's my attendance policy. Does anyone have questions or thoughts about that? Going once. Yes, Rosa Maria.
I'm sorry, I don't have a question about attendance. I just wanted to know, I didn't see on the syllabus that it states the dates of our exams. Are you
Great
gonna
question.
advise us?
I am going to get to that.
Okay,
That was not an accident. That was intentional.
okay. No, I
Um,
just want to make sure because some of my professors, they would tell us like just a few days before the exam, and I feel like that didn't prepare us enough to study. So I just want to know we get enough, like adequate
yeah.
amount of
Uh,
time.
here's my general policy about exams. I don't rush to an exam. I take my time, I do the lecture, I make sure that everyone's questions are answered. But if I put dates, um, week one and the dates, I'm going to cover X material. What if you have questions and I fall behind? That's going to throw off all the dates, right? So instead of putting dates, I treat this as a learning community and we will get to the exams when we get there, so to speak. We always get there. It's not like they're not going to be there, but I do hear what you're saying. So what I generally do when I have a class that meets 2 nights a week is that I space out my exam so that when we finish the content, I will say next week, that day, we'll have our first exam. So let's say we finish on a Wednesday. I'll say next Wednesday is our first exam. And that'll give you the ability to study. Pardon me, not next Wednesday, forgive me. Thursday. Next Thursday will be our exam. Instead of 2 days, you have a whole week. Sometimes people are like, well, oh, then you're going to be lecturing new material in the one class in between the tests. That is true. I need to keep lecturing, right? I need to keep our class moving forward. But that content, once we finish, will not be on the exam. It'll be on the next exam. That's one way I've handled it, generally speaking. Or the other way I've handled it was to pick the day that is after the weekend. So we have a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. Sometimes I will say, okay, all of our exams will be on a Tuesday. And there are advantages, right? So if we have Tuesday, Thursday, you know you have the weekend to study. In this case, I'm okay with doing it either way. So that's kind of up to the class. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to stop my share for a second, is I'd like to do our first vote of the class. And I said there were 2 options. The first option is to do it exactly a week from whenever we finish the material. And then the second one is to do, in our case, the Tuesday after we finish the material so that it's predictable on a certain day. So if we could, everybody knows how to use the hand raise tool? Or
Yeah.
should I explain that? Just in case, right? So you'll go to the bottom right corner. There's the reaction tabs. You can raise your hand. There's a button to raise your hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask how many of you would prefer the first option. And the first option was to do it a week after we finish the material. I'm going to let the votes come in as they come in. Well, what I am seeing is 20 plus votes. So I don't need to go through the rest because majority rules. So we already have a voting majority of the 35 people. So it'll be simple. If we finish on a Thursday, the test would be the following Thursday. If we finish on a Tuesday, the test would be a following Tuesday. That seems to be the will of the class, and I'm okay with that. Questions on that? Okay, so I'll tell you that you pick wisely. I think that is the better option, to be honest with you, because you will always have 7 days versus in some scenarios, you'll have 5 days. Some scenarios you might have 7, but it's, each person has their own preference. All right, so let me go back into our syllabus. Now I see I have 2 hands up. Are they from the vote or are they questions? Victoria, Rosa Maria.
Yeah, sorry, I'm bombarding you with so many questions, Professor.
Can I stop you? Don't apologize. How much money did you pay for this class? Or how much does class cost?
I don't know how much a class costs. I know how much my tuition is a year.
Right, so you're spending good money on this class, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So you can ask as many questions as you want. This
Great.
is your classroom, so you don't need to apologize. If you have questions, ask.
So I saw that you wrote in the syllabus when I was reading it earlier
Mhm.
that it's not all multiple choice. I wanted to know, is it like short response, true or false,
No,
essay questions?
good question. This format, the online class, I do all multiple choice. Sometimes I have like an essay where a person gets to reflect on the material. But online, it's easier to score. It's objective grading.
Okay.
So in this modality, I use all multiple choice.
And are the questions that you writing yourself, meaning like it's off of your PowerPoint slides and it's specifically stuff from the lecture? Is it from the textbook only, or is it a mixture of both? Because I know some professors, they'll only go off their lecture and some will go off of only the book, some will go a little off of both.
So the answer is it's a combination of both. And it's not that I'm intentionally putting questions that are not on my slideshow, but um, I say important things as I'm lecturing that actually appear in the book that aren't written word for word on the slide. So it's a combination of both. But if I had to say what percentage comes straight out of the book, I would say at least 98 to 99% comes straight from the textbook.
Okay, so it's not like gonna be like, oh, there's something you only will have in your PowerPoint that's in the book that will be on the test, right?
No, because I'm not trying to, like, really, my PowerPoints should map onto the book very nicely, right? So in fact, if you look through my PowerPoints, I basically created slides as summary of the material, and they're pretty detailed. Sometimes I might even critique them as being a little busy, but it has all of the major points. So I can feel confident saying 98, 99% of the items. If you read the book, if you have the words on the slide, you're going to be okay. Why do I give myself 1 to 2%? Sometimes there's an important point that I bring up in a given semester that I want to emphasize that is not standard. So I want to give myself the flexibility to throw a question or two like that on a test. But yeah, I won't throw something on the test that is not in the book or is not lectured about. I won't, like, there should be zero questions that you're looking at and say, I never heard of this person, right? If we're talking about the history of psychology and I cover the people in that chapter, you should know all of their names. I shouldn't throw on some random person that doesn't belong in that lecture, and I don't. So there are some people who've had me before, and they will tell you that I say what I mean what I say. My exams, I can most of the time show you exactly what slide it came off of. And that's why I say 98, 99%. So you're going to be okay. It's a good question. Any follow up, any other thoughts before I move to the next? Okay. All right. So we talked about my attendance policy and participation. This class is tricky because it almost invites cheating, right? And that's unfortunate because it's hard to monitor when you're taking an exam what you're doing and what or whether you're getting how you're getting the information. But I expect you to have integrity in your work and use your answers from your your knowledge rather than consulting with a peer or rather than, looking it up during the exam. Will I be able to tell 100% of the times? No. But if I am able to catch it, I have to give a 0, right? And that is the most lenient penalty we have. Some instructors give an F in the class due to cheating. Some instructors submit the evidence of cheating to academic affairs with the intention of either suspending or expelling a student from the college. I don't do that. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to punish you. So I don't want you to feel that that's the case. But if you do cheat and I'm able to detect it, I will give you a 0 for the exam, right? Because we only have exams and participation. You're not going to be cheating on participation, but exams, you have the potential. All right. In terms of important dates, know that May 16th is the drop deadline. And that's pretty much the last day of the semester prior to finals week. This is a carryover from COVID. During COVID, we extended drop deadlines and we never went back. It used to be you had 2/3 of a semester to decide whether you wanted to stay. Now they give you all the way till the end of the semester, pretty much. Jenny.
So will you be giving like extra credits, like assignments?
As needed. And I say as needed because I don't want to promise something and then the class is doing fantastic and there's no need for it. Generally speaking, our department has a policy that we're allowed to give anywhere, not mandated, but allowed to give anywhere between 1% to 3% extra credit towards the final average. Anything beyond 3% towards the final average, the department will not allow us to do. They will say it's grade inflation. So I hate being a little dodgy in my answer. It's a good question, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how much extra credit will be needed, if at all. Right. So, and if there's no extra credit needed, I'm not going to artificially inflate the grades, if that makes sense. But typically I tend to give anywhere between 1% to 3%. Those of your peers who've had me before, and as I see from the roster, there are many people who've had me before, that at the end of the semester, I generally do give something. How much, what you do in order to earn it varies from semester to semester. It's a good question. Now, your cell phones, look, it's hard to police what you do in an online class. But if you're going to be on a laptop, I ask you just kind of put your phone to the side, try and avoid looking at it, try and avoid, texting other people, just focus on the class. Now, in this particular class, I won't know, right? And in the classroom, I know because I can see you on the phone with your thumbs. Here, it's a little bit less clear, but this is on the honor system. I used to say just don't even bring them out, but I found that students really enjoy moving the slides with their phone. And now that we're doing Zoom, many students use their phone for the Zoom session. So all I'm going to ask you is, if you can't turn it off, can't put it to the side, put it on silent mode. And if you're going to use it for the class. That's generally my breakdown. Now, if you look at the topics, we cover every major school of thought as it relates to psychology. you'll notice that generally speaking, you'll have 3 or 4 lectures on every exam. You'll also notice that test 4 is not cumulative. So test 4 is your final, right? So your first exam will cover lectures 1 through 3 or chapters 1 through 3, pardon me. Your second test will cover chapters 4 through 7. Third, 8 through 11, and fourth, 12 through 15. Sometimes I don't get to the contemporary development. Sometimes I wind up ending right at the end of psychoanalysis. So sometimes the final is 12 through 14. It happens in this class. So the nice thing about me dropping an exam is that if you do really well on your first 3 exams, you can opt out of the final, right? You could choose to say, yeah, this is going to be the test I drop. But if you don't do well, it also gives you a buffer. And I drop an exam in every class because I know that you have responsibilities outside of my class. I know that some of you are taking care of parents or children or even siblings. Some of you are working while going to school, hence why you're doing a virtual lesson. You know, some of you, you know, have other competing responsibilities. So if one of your competing responsibilities gets in the way, I don't want you to feel like, oh, now I ruined my chance of getting an A in the class. Everybody has the opportunity to earn an A. I would love if everyone did earn an A. I don't cap how many A's a person can get, how many A's one could get in the class. So my hope is that everyone gets an A, but I want to create a forum that invites you doing the best you possibly can. And that's why I drop the lowest test score. All right, now my grading policy, I embedded it, but just in case you wanted to see it, again, each test that I'm counting, so these are your 3 highest score, will count for 30% of your grade, and then the final 10% is through attendance and participation. The last thing that I'll call your attention to is my grading policy. So my grading policy is a fairly standard grading policy. If anything, I'm a little bit lenient in where my cutoff point for an A is. Some professors give an A at a 95. I do it at a 93. And my logic for that is that in every other cutoff point, you'll see that if it's broken into 3 segments, it's 3, 7, 10, right? That's how we break it up, 3, 4, 3. So we have an A minus, we have an A, but we don't have an A plus. And because we don't have an A plus, I imagine we did. And I moved the A down from a higher point to a 93. And that's my grading policy, and that's the syllabus. Any questions on the syllabus?
I have a question.
Sure.
So we don't have any other assignments, just the 4 exams?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's a very simple class. It's as easy as I can make it.
Okay, I see.
So, you know, some of you might be thinking, well, you know, what if I don't do well on, you know, multiple choice exams? The way I curve, the way I drop an exam, you'll be fine. I've done this again. I'm now entering my 18th year at the College of Staten Island. I know how the grades land out. You just have to trust me. And if you don't trust me after your first class with me, you'll trust me. I promise you. So you'll be okay, even though it's all multiple choice. Other questions on the syllabus? All right. Okay, so in the chat, there was a question, is there an online textbook available? The answer is yes. I think that you can rent the textbook online for something like $30. And I believe, unfortunately, people violate copyright laws. You might even find a PDF version of it floating around. Although, for the record, I'm not condoning said practice. All right. So, but yeah, there is an online textbook available. Other questions? All right. So, you're welcome. Let me stop the recording because I want the syllabus review to be separate from the actual lecture. So I'm going to stop recording and then restart recording.